One.
Good evening and welcome back to the June 14th Los Alamitos Unified School District board meeting. And we did just come out of closed session where we discussed conference negotiations, public employees, and student discipline, but no action was taken. And so as we open this meeting, please, if anybody does want to speak to the board, a card needs to be in at the beginning of the meeting. And then next we will go into our Pledge of Allegiance. And my VP, Mr. Forham, would you mind leading us? Thank you, sir. And now we will go into the executive summary of our workshop. We had a very interesting workshop on enrollment. And Mrs. Galicia.
Thank you, Madam President. During this afternoon board workshop, we had the privilege of having Mr. Ron Van Orden from Power Schools. They are our district demographers. They presented to the board their 22 enrollment forecast. Mr. Van Orden provided demographic trends affecting current enrollment, their approach and methodology, and historical enrollment data, as well as new housing development data. He also presented enrollment forecast and the factors that influence future enrollment.
Thank you very much. It was interesting. So we will now go into reports, and I will start with my board report. So really, as we come off our promotions and our graduation, which was phenomenal, they all were, and our enrollment workshop, I really thought it might be a great opportunity to really look at what does it look like if you're coming into the district and you're new and you want to get your child enrolled in our fabulous schools. I know that there have been a lot of because my husband is a broker, real estate broker, I know there have been a lot of sales of houses before summer started to get kids settled so they can come into our schools. So there is all of the information that you would really need is if you would visit our website, and it's losal.org, and then if you do the backslash, you can get straight to the enrollment. And if to enroll in our district schools within the boundaries, you have to have a valid address within Los Alamitos. If you do not, then there's still opportunity for you. And so you would click on the interdistrict transfer link, and then information will be provided for you at that step. And so the first step really is to go to the website to get the information, to fill out some of the basic information, and to give us your email address so that we can start supplying you with some information. And then the second step is actually contacting the school in person. You'll also be able to find on the website district boundaries. So what would be your home school? We do have in our district an opportunity for parents if they want to transfer to a different school that's not their home school, but that's also upon request and upon space, correct?
Yes, and then typically there's a deadline for that, which is around March 1st. We've been able to honor some late requests in the past, and we'll do the best that we can moving forward.
Yep, thank you. And then if you go further, and this is your first time you're coming into the district, your children, this is some of the documentation and information that you would need to provide to the district and to the school site to make sure that we're verifying your students' enrollment in our district as a student within our school boundaries. So, and I know that I made a joke earlier in our workshop, but it was the truth. I moved to Los Alamitos when my son was my oldest son was in preschool at the Isabel Patterson Child Development Center at Cal State Long Beach. And when we moved here, we moved to start going to kindergarten in Los Al schools. And we moved in February, and it started to get to be around August. And I'm like, I wonder if anybody's going to call me about my son being in kindergarten. I really had no idea that I was supposed to take the action to get him enrolled in school. So just in case, for those of you who may not.
I bet that didn't happen with your second child.
It did not happen with my second child. So you'll also see on this list as well that the district, you can also reach out to Lisa Wallace, and her email address information is here. And this falls under the Office of Human Resources. So that's under Dr. Frazier's guidance as the leader for that as well. And then if you are also looking at the more information that needs to be given, and I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it used to be every year you had to fill out a brand new packet for your child, supplying all of this information and so on and so forth. And I believe that we've gotten to a little bit more advanced technology where it's not the pink paper and the blue paper and the green paper. And
yeah, a lot of it is done now through Aries, through online enrollment process. So some of this is about, we'll link you over to some of the online. For a brand new family, for a continuing family, they just confirm their enrollment yearly.
Which is awesome. And so, and then also you will see that E is a supplemental agreement, and that's only necessary if your child is an interdistrict transfer into the district as well. And then it does talk a little bit about, and this PowerPoint will be available on our website. So if you kind of want a cheat sheet to go through it, it will help you because Miss Tina made it for me, and she did a great job. So, and then just a little bit about, so if there's any questions, I know that you can contact our offices. It can be a bit overwhelming, I do believe. As I said, I didn't even know I was supposed to, but there's a lot of information and documentation that is needed as you bring your child into the district. So, and then we also, just to let you know, that the district does have summer hours. And so our district does close the offices Friday at noon on the following dates. And then there's also information about the July 4th holiday as well. So please, we are here to help with anything that you need. And it's a very exciting time if your children are coming in and they're coming into new schools. And we really want to be able to provide support in that and make sure that you know where everything is and are helped through that process. So that's, since we were talking about enrollment today, and we just graduated 711, I do believe, Griffin graduates. We can't wait to have your new students in our schools. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Pulver.
You're welcome. Thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. I have to admit, it feels weird following you. I typically follow Will. And so, Will, you are in my presentation. We got a picture of you at graduation with some of the board members and myself. So you will see yourself in the board, in my superintendent's report. So as Mrs. Hill was sharing about, while most of our school offices will be closing probably by our elementary schools, the school offices will close by next Tuesday or Wednesday, and our middle school and high school will probably be open closer to the end of June. The district office remains open all summer long, so we will be able to provide assistance for you. But yes, we do have those modified hours on Fridays. So the culminating events for us, I think, is always exciting. And at the end of the year, it's really about our promotions and our graduation. And so I just wanted to highlight our class of 2022. Some of them might be the 5th grade class of 2022, the 8th grade class, and then certainly the senior class who's definitely graduating. One of the things that evolved through the pandemic was hosting all of our elementary 5th grade promotions right here at the district office. on our Laurel Field. So we had 3 on Monday and 3 on Tuesday of last week. Really a spectacular opportunity to just celebrate the intense accomplishments of our students, of our families, and for our staff. Our student speakers did a great job as well. I think all of the 5th graders performed a song or two in tribute and to their families and to the audience. And then it was nice that we had McGaw always has the Seal Beach Police come out and they give the students a challenge coin. So I'm really just proud of all of our 5th graders. And as many know, they'll be going either to Oak as a lion or to McAuliffe as a eagle. And then hopefully they'll end up at the high school where they'll merge as a griffin. Next, we had our middle school promotions, and in true middle school fashion, how can you not love those pictures? And so this was McAuliffe Middle School and Oak Middle School. They were at the Santa Ana Bowl for our families. We did that during the pandemic as well when we needed space to be able to spread the crowd out, as well as it's the same place where we did our high school graduation. We are looking to bring our middle school promotions back to Los Alamitos High School on our track and field for next year. So I know that's been something that many of our families, and I know the board has but I also want to share to both for all of our graduations, when we moved our elementaries graduations and when we moved our middle schools here to the district office, it really took the burden off of our school sites, but the work and the coordination could not have been done without Mrs. Davis, our director of assessment, accountability, and services, et cetera. So just thank you to Melissa and to Andrea for really making all of these possible for that. And of course, they support the high school, which the high school has a team as well that does this through activities office and through our assistant principal, Mr. Quartermarch. Which brings me to our Los Alamitos. Will, there you are, by the way, if you're watching us tonight. It just was a wonderful evening, particularly as the lights got as the sun started to set and the stadium lights came up and we had our LAHS in 2022 lights up. And so I thought what I would do, we just sent out an email to all of our staff and to families today. If you follow us and you watch the wrap up, we did share last week we were going to have a special edition of the wrap up. And so we'll show that in a little bit. The other exciting thing is we had our adult transition program. As many of you know, that we provide services for some students from all the way through age 22. So from 18 to 22, our adult transition program is housed here at the district office. But in reality, they're really much of their day is out at various work sites and work locations. And it's been pretty neat to see even that program grow and even how they make the promotion ceremonies feel special and unique, but it's a much smaller scale. And so Mrs. Davidson, I think almost the entire board was there, along with myself and many members of cabinet, Mrs. Delk, to really recognize the contributions and the achievements of our students who are in our adult transition program. So we congratulated them. And then for those families, the ATP program just provided a luncheon and really out on the lawn, right outside. So it was just a really beautiful ceremony to recognize their accomplishments as well. And here, without further ado, here is our special edition of our LAHS class of 2000 graduation, the wrap up. Hope you enjoy it as much as we did.
So we talked all night about the rest of our lives, where we're gonna be when we turn 25. I keep thinking times will never change. Keep on thinking things will always be the same. When we leave this year, we won't be coming back. No more hanging out 'cause we're on a different track. And if you got something that you need to say, you better say it right now 'cause you don't have another day. 'Cause we're moving on and we can't slow down. These memories are playing like a film without sound, and I keep thinking
family, and everyone else, thank you for coming to celebrate the class of 2022 with all of us.
Persevere and attain. The C's drove me to study and go to school every day.
While we appreciate our parents' guidance, we now have the freedom and choice to be something different and new.
Undeniable that every second has the potential to be remarkable. How you spend them is entirely up to you.
You be you and do what you do, because there will never be another class like the class of 2022.
So now, on behalf of the Board of the Trustees, I consider it an honor to award the members of the class of 2022.
Ella Reed.
Charles Bond, Eli Hug. The graduating class of 2022. And for one final send-off, in case we don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
As we go on, we remember all the times we had together. And as our lives change from whatever, we will still be friends forever.
Very special for our seniors. I want to thank our communications officer, Nicole Pichardo, who made the special edition of the wrap up. If you're interested in watching the entire graduation ceremony, that too will be available on YouTube. But the condensed version here is a nice, and also to weave in the senior parade and the tradition we started several years ago about having our graduates come back to the elementary schools, what they came to see the teachers and the students and be models for our students as well. So really hats off to a wonderful program and to really the accomplishments of our students. So thank you and congrats to our senior class of 2022. One last announcement that I thought I would just share. Our next board meeting is June 28th. And we are going to change the start time of that board meeting from 6:30 to 6 p.m. due to some schedule conflicts. So once again, our board meeting on June 28th will start at 6 p.m. On June 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver. That was wonderful and a great recap. And so now we'll start with our board communication. And Mrs. Davidson.
Well, it has been, the last 2 weeks have been whirlwind for everybody. I think it started out after the last board meeting with Griffins, which was, it's a wonderful track and field event with food and everything, where some of our students, K-12, who are face challenges with courage and commitment, are matched up with football players and girls softball and cheer and song, and they spend the whole afternoon together doing a whole lot of fun things, playing baseball, doing little games, whatever. But it's very uplifting to even be a part of standing there and watching and cheering them on. So that was a great start. My husband and I went to senior awards, which is always completely amazing. I mean, one young man who sang a solo for David Mullenkamp for choir was a valedictorian and is going to MIT. So some people got back in line when they were handing gifts out, because these kids are absolutely phenomenal. And it really makes me absolutely positive that I do not want to be a teenager again and try and compete in this world, because these kids are multi-talented and driven and compassionate and empathetic. So we go to senior awards. We get to give scholarships in honor of our daughter to students at the high school who the counselors recommend that have faced very difficult situations with courage, determination, and a beautiful heart. So it's always a big honor for us to be able to do that. We got to finish off being there for the awarding of the pins at Hopkinton. All of the schools, the teachers and staff were given pins at 5-year increments for their time with the district, and it just always reaffirms what a family we are. The other awards I went to, special to my heart, is McCullough. And those 8th graders, some of them got so many awards, they were bent over with the medals, then clanging all the way home. But it was fun because I got to hang them over their heads. And then there was Baccalaureate, which was out on track and field. It was a beautiful ceremony, and there's so much talent. And was one young man who sang Sail Away, and I was sitting behind him, and I don't ever think I'll forget that moment. If he isn't a Broadway star, I won't know why. Probably because he's probably going to MIT as well, but, I'm going to discover some cure to cancer. But so it was a wonderful evening, beautiful, perfect, and it's so great to be able to be together with everyone without restrictions. So that was a very wonderful event. The next day, I got to go to Old Ranch to be part of a breakfast that honored law enforcement in Orange County. Our district had a table. It was really important for me to be there because I am so deeply indebted and grateful to our local law enforcement and surrounding communities who supported us through some very difficult meetings and times last year. They were there for us. They protected our kids. They kept everyone safe, and they did it with a smile. So it was very wonderful hearing the stories of different police officers and law enforcement being honored, and some of them for very courageous acts. The promotions were wonderful. 5th grade speakers. How anybody in 5th grade can sound like they're from, some college level speech class is quite unbelievable. Vocabulary, ideas, thinking, heart that they show, just an incredible poise. So every promotion was just a real treat. I want to echo what Dr. Pulver said, the adult transition promotion, graduation, that I thought back on it, I feel like that was probably one of the most touching moments of the 3.5 years that I've been on the board, because these young people were so excited about getting these awards, and they were so happy for each other. And I got to talk with my dear friend Lori Avalos, whose son is in the program now, and she shared with me, I had no real idea, Dr. Pulver was sharing, they go to workouts. They work in local grocery stores, stocking shelves. They work in like Starbucks, different coffee shops, making great coffees for everyone. They go deliver Meals on Wheels to seniors, which I find all of it to be something that I didn't even realize was going on, and how absolutely phenomenal their interaction with the community actually is, and the opportunities and doors that will open up for them because of this great program. So I really thank everybody involved in it. And I thank the parents, because the parents from day one are advocates for these kids, and they advocate every inch of the way from day one of birth all the way into adulthood, and they never stop loving and giving to these kids, and that's what makes it all work. I attended the anti-gun violence rally at the high school, which was put on by teachers and students. It was a small but mighty group. I think after Uvalde, we've gotten lots of phone calls and emails. Parents, community members are scared. We all feel scared, and it's become such a common practice. Since Uvalde, there's been how many more shootings? But I think the community needs to know. Los Alamitos, our district, our police force, our city council, our city manager, everybody is working together to be proactive and to come up with the best plan moving forward. And today we were able to meet with officials from each one of those groups, and there are plans in the works. What Dr. Friedman shared with us, how there's 10 criteria for dealing with this kind of situation, and we are doing many of those pieces, like mental health, resources. We are training our staff, but we can do more, and that's the thing. The police force in Los Alamitos is very committed to keeping every child safe. Our chief's kids go to our students in the district, so absolutely. Don't stop asking, don't stop pushing, don't stop questioning us, because this is something that we can't set aside. So I'm very thankful to Los Alamitos, to Chief Claiborne, is that right? He's new, but he is on fire. So that's basically it for me.
Mr. Forehand.
Okay, I can add not much to that report other than I too went to Griff Friends, and I loved that event. I participated in the principal interviews, and as you said, you didn't want to be a teacher now, and challenging. I don't want to interview for a principal job in this district again, because the quality of candidates and the outcomes were fantastic. I went to senior awards, but also I went to the 8th grade awards at Oak, and that was good. It's the first time I've been to the actual awards to see all the kids, all these medals. And then I went to the 5th grade awards at Rossmore and Hopkinson, and I enjoyed getting to see the types of awards that they give out, which were many. My favorite event might have been the CDC preschool art show, because I got to attend that with my grandson a few years ago, and I remember how much the art teacher in that program, she's phenomenal, what she gets out of those little kids. Baccalaureate, as Marlis already said, was spectacular, and I joined Marlis at the anti-gun rally, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Speak up, give us ideas, talk to us about it. It's a big concern for all of us. The seniors visiting the elementary school, I happened to be at Weaver for that. It was just great. The kids, seniors are so awesome, and the elementary kids look up to them, so that was great. I did complete 8 promotions. My hand is now recovered from shaking hands. I did 1 huge graduation, and you captured it all, Nicole. You did. You're unbelievable. And the ATP, I would agree totally with Marlis. That one is very special. And then as far as I always end with kids, I'm going to highlight Mr. Jones' chemistry kids, because for the first time I got to join the 5th grade Mrs. Salter's class on the bus. We went up there, and his kids, the kids in the class, make science come alive, and the 5th graders are in awe. So that's my report.
Thank you, sir. I think we will move over to you, Scott. Mr. Fayette, our high school graduation speaker.
Thank you, Madam President. And that's a nice segue into my leading thing. I just want to say to the high school speaker, Miss Savannah Smith, who I knew through Hopkinson, I want to say what a courageous young lady, because I actually know what it's like to try and get up in front of that many people and have a speech. On behalf of the Los Al Unified School District community, I do want to apologize for how you were treated during your speech. I thought you handled a very difficult situation with grace, poise, and class. Thank you. I only made it to 7 promotions and 2 graduations. I wasn't a perfect 10 for 10 like Mr. Forehand. It's incredible, such joy, such enthusiasm, and really, it's been fantastic. I've heard about all the wonderful things I missed. Unfortunately, I had COVID. I was quarantined for 10 days, so I missed a bunch of activities. One of my favorite is the Griff Friends, which I got to go to last year. I missed that this year, but I'm looking forward to doing all those events next year. Good luck, and I hope everyone is enjoying their summers to rest, recharge, and come back strong and better than ever for next year.
Thank you, Mr. Fayette. And Mrs. Catulli.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Hill. I made it to 8 of the 10 promotion graduations, so that was pretty good. There are also a lot of other things going on, and I don't want to minimize the celebrations that we've all just experienced from all level of our education groups here, whether it was middle, elementary, or high school. But there were other things happening that were kind of important, and so I'm going to talk about those. This is just totally selfish what I'm reporting right now, but Newport Harbor High School has a Dave Mose Invitational Memorial volleyball tournament between North County and South County. We're considered North County, and they invite kids to play in it. Well, we had 3 students from Los Al who played in it. Olivia Panzica, who I may be related to. We're not quite sure. She played obviously on the women's team, and Noah Roberts and Beck Weber played on the men's team. And it was I was there. The girls North won, that's what we are, and the boys South won. But these kids have probably only practiced 2 hours together. And it is a team sport. So, but each level of play from every person on that court was outstanding. And that was a fun thing to do. We also had some retirement receptions that we all went to. We do at this time of year lose some incredible employees and leaders, but that's the natural progression. And unfortunately, we can't make them stay. So that was kind of sad. Every year at the end of the school, Oak and McAuliffe have a track meet that involves the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And the PE teachers run it, and I saw both of the principals were on the field. They were using every single thing on the field in Los Al. They were doing long jumps, and I couldn't even watch that. That made me a little nervous. And pole vaulting and shot put and things that I'm wondering how often have these kids been experiencing before. It was the kids were having a great time, and that was a really fun thing to do that. And then ROP had been really kind of busy. Our superintendent had resigned, and so we had a 9-hour meeting on a Sunday. Yeah, it was a marathon meeting where we did interviews for our superintendent. We were able to select a superintendent, and then we had to negotiate a contract, and which we got done all in one day. So we were very happy about that. And then we had our regular ROP meeting where we say goodbye to Terry DiGirolamo and say hello to Dana Lynch. So it will be good for ROP. And then I also have another shout out about ROP. In our EMT and fire science pathway, we have the capstone class for all of the ROPs in our consortium. And what they have gotten North Orange County ROP got a grant from Strong Workforce. And part of the money they used on that is that every person who was in this capstone class got a study book and their certificate application paid for. And if you take this test, you can become certified as an EMT. You must complete the class, which they have at the high school, and be 18 years of age, and then you can take this certification. The passage rate for the first time taking this test is only 29%. So it's probably a lot trickier than most of us would think it. And I want to give a shout out to Max Markley, who was Mr. Erickson's student this year in the EMT class, and he passed it first time. So he is going off to college, and he can get a fabulous part-time job. And he is interested in pursuing fire science. So besides all the regular wonderful things with promotions, there are lots of other celebrations going on.
Thank you, Mrs. Catulli. That is awesome. So a couple things for me. I was 9 out of 10 and just really enjoyed every moment. And I was also very appreciative of Mrs. D'Angelo. She set me up so I could sit here in the district office and work in between and then just walk back and forth from the field, and also our staff, and what a great job you did. And I really think that the families, everybody that I've talked to, principals, families, they've all really enjoyed it here on Laurel Field. It makes it so easy and so accessible to everybody. So thank you very much for all that and all the hard work. I'm sure that your feet are killing you. So thank you for that. Girlfriends was amazing. And one of the things that I really enjoy about that, I've been going since the very first one, is also watching the parents watch their children. I raised 2 sons, and I sat in a lot of grandstands watching them do some pretty spectacular things, and it's very special to be able to do that. And the parents are just glowing at those. And so I'm just really grateful for all the work that goes into that and how joyous it is as well. Senior Awards Night was amazing. I got there a few minutes late, which is seems to be my modus operandi. Try to do too many things at one time, but that I like that. So, so I got in and I didn't know where I was supposed to sit, and so I saw that the front row was empty on the left-hand side. So I just went and sat at the end of the front row. And I realized, oh, I'm sitting with all the students, and I'm like, oh, I like sitting with all the students. So it was very fun watching them all go up, and it was amazing. Hopkins and longevity, I just really appreciate the loyalty of so many of our teachers, and a dear family friend got her 25-year pin, and I just looked at her and I'm like, there's no way, Noreen, there's no way you can have your 25-year pin. But it was very nice. It was enjoyable to be there. I got to go to the Oak Jazz performance, and just was amazed, and it was really kind of sweet for me because my neighbor is in the Oak Jazz, and so if you know our homes here, they're pretty close together. So I heard him rehearsing for weeks. And he did a spectacular job, but Mr. Harrell did such a nice job with that, and being able to have our students and see them all up there and how full all of his programs are just really makes me really hopeful also for all of our programs at the high school coming up. Senior parade, it was very fun, and I did it on my bike. I did part of it with Mr. Forham. We stood at the entrance as they were all going out, and then my husband and I got on our bikes and rode around and watched the parade, and it was it's going to become quite a tradition here. Very, very special. I like to also bring attention sometimes to things in our community. Our community is so giving that I went to Precious Life fundraiser over at St. Isidore's, and just saw so many of our community members and teachers and principals, and Carrie Logue from LAIF supporting different, nonprofits in the area. So that was a great time. And we did have an amazing meeting with the city of Los Alamitos. I am so grateful. I do believe it's been probably at least 5 years since we've had a working group meeting with Los Alamitos. Seal Beach has never stopped and been very, very productive for us. And the chief, I think, gave all of us a great deal of comfort today, talking about what his plan is, what he wants to do, what they will continue to do. We asked some hard questions, and he had some really great answers. So I appreciate that very much. Also, just two really quick things. I do want to say thank you to the News Enterprise. And I really love that they also look for different ways of recognizing students, maybe not always necessarily directly through our schools, but students that are in our community. And one says, a local student who trains with La Salle wins the Greco championship, and I guess is a wrestler, and he's 13 years old, and he seems to be a pretty darn special. He looks really tiny to me, but I guess he's a really special wrestler. So we'll watch out for him. And then La Salle Youth Rocketry team facing the county's best. And I thought that was really wonderful, and talked a little bit about Starbase, which is in Los Alamitos Youth Rocketry program. And I think they work with LAIF as well. And so I thought that was awesome. And then last but not least, if anybody's going to Staples, just want you to know, when she asks if you want to spend $5 for a box, you say yes, and it will go either to, I believe it is Weaver or Lee, and they are donating those supplies. I thought it was really great. It's kind of funny for me sitting there going, oh, well, what schools are these for? And asking these questions, but they do a great job over there. So that is the end for me. Anything else for communication? All right, time to move on to business, right? So are we going to skip our recess? Okay, and I have no cards, so I don't need to read the public comment section. So we can move straight in to information and presentations, and we do have a lot of presentations today. And so the first one is the Los Alamitos Education Association initial proposal for Los Alamitos Unified School District, and Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I would like to bring up Stacy Schmidt. I wasn't sure if it was Lori or Stacy, but I do want to acknowledge Lori Avalos, who is also here for representing LAEA. And so I'm going to bring Stacy Schmidt to the podium to talk about the initial proposal for the 22-23 Los Alamitos School District negotiations.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Pulver, and Executive Cabinet. I'm here to give my last sunshine proposal. The Los Alamitos Education Association proposes to open negotiations for the 22-23 school year on Article 5, Hours of Employment and Duties. LAEA reserves the right to discuss all articles of the collective bargaining agreement between the Los Alamitos School District and the Los Alamitos Education Association for the purposes of discussion and modification. That's it. And salary and benefits. Goes without saying, right?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Schmitz, and your leadership has been amazing, and we have so appreciated having the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you. I'm leaving the team in good hands and look forward to the work ahead they will do. Thank you.
So she'll still be LAEA president, but her role as the bargaining chair will be handed off to a new member of the bargaining team.
Thank you for clarifying, Dr. Pulver. So now it's gavel time for me. And so we will now have a public hearing on the Los Alamitos Education Association, LAEA, initial proposal for the 2022-2023 school year to the Los Alamitos Unified School District. And I gavel out of our meeting. I will gavel into the public hearing. And are there any comments at this time? Seeing no comments, we will gavel back out of the public hearing. We now move into the Los Alamitos Unified School District initial proposal for 2022-2023 to Los Alamitos Education LAEA. And this is all Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to say thank you to Stacy as well. It's been incredible for my first 3 years to be able to work with Stacy as the lead negotiator. The work is hard and it's long and challenging at times. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of, but there's a lot of times that we come together through our process and really try to work together to make sure that we all are feeling valued, and we really appreciate the work that Stacy has done, and we're glad that she's staying on as well as president. So we'll see. I'll continue to see a lot of her. So I'm excited about that. At this time, I would like to bring forward our proposal for the Los Alamitos Unified School District, and we will be opening Article 5, Hours of Employment and Duties, Article 16, Salaries and Salary Schedules and Rules, and Article 17, Fringe Benefits. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frazier. So now we will go into a public hearing again for the Los Alamitos Unified School District initial proposal for 2022, 2023, and LAEA. I will gavel out of our original meeting, gavel into the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, I will gavel out and we will continue on with our meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. We will now move on to the presentation of the Local Control Accountability Plan, and Mrs. Reed.
Thank you so much, President Hill. Tonight, we're going to be giving our annual presentation of our current draft of our Local Control Accountability Plan, and Mrs. Melissa Davis, our Director of Assessment and Accountability, who really oversees this entire process from stakeholder engagement to running our district advisory committees to really working with the county, business services as a partner to bring this document to life every year. She's really responsible for the entirety of it. So just a big thank you to Mrs. Davis. This really is ongoing work that's very laborious, but also puts some strategic goals and plans down in place that support all of our staff and students. So very thankful for her work.
Mrs. Davis. Not like you haven't been busy lately.
Not at all. Good evening, President Hill, members of the board, Dr. Pulver, cabinet, and community members. It is my pleasure to present to you tonight a draft of actions and goals that are in our local control accountability plan for the 22-23 school year. So if you recall, last year was the year one of our three-year cycle for the LCAP. So we're currently going into the middle portion of that 21 to 24 LCAP cycle. So just a brief review of the LCAP versus LCFF. So the LCAP, which is the Local Control Accountability Plan, is really the plan or the actual document that really outlines all of our actions and goals and services of how we intend to increase or maintain our achievement and social emotional growth of all of our second language learners, our foster youth, and students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. The LCFF, which is the local control funding formula, is the dollars that we receive to do that work. So that comes in two different pots of money, our base funding and then our supplemental funds. And I'll kind of go over the differences between those two in a minute. So the purpose of the LCAP is really to address the 8 state priorities with actions and services that target the spending of our dollars. So there's 8 state priorities that we kind of categorize in 3 different goals here in Los Al. And so the supplemental funds that we receive represent about 3% of our overall budget. And these funds, these supplemental monies that we get are spent on our numerically significant subgroups of students, which are unduplicated pupils, which are the low-income, foster youth, English learners, and our redesignated English learners. So in Los Alamitos this year, that's approximately 18% of our overall student population. So when we talk about the base funding versus the supplemental funding, so our base funding is the amount that we received based upon our student enrollment or our average daily attendance. And as you can see on the left there, it's different by grade level. We receive a different dollar amount. Our LCFF supplemental dollars are the dollars that we receive based off our unduplicated count of students. And so for this 21-22 school year, it was about $3.262 million, and it's projected for 22-23 to be approximately $3.289 million. So not too much of a difference. And then you can see there's a little bit of shift, not very much, from 18.2% of our unduplicated pupils in the 21-22 school year, and for the 22-23 is projected about 17.68%. There is a third pot of money, which are concentration funds. We don't receive concentration funds in Los Alamitos. Our unduplicated count is less than 51%, and you have to have over 51% or higher to receive those funds. So if you look at our kind of overall base funding is about $93 million, and you can see the supplemental funding we receive in Los Al is 3.2. It's that tiny, tiny sliver. So we've always said we're the losers in the LCFF. It's a very small amount of money that we receive to provide services to our unduplicated pupils. When we talk about the...
Ms. Davis, can I just ask a really quick question before you get away with it? So if I recall correctly, we've been kind of at 15% before in the past, and now we're at 18%. Is that approximately right? Or are we right where we usually are?
We're pretty close to where it's been a little bit lower, but it's within, I'd have to go back. I want to say it was about 17-ish%. I think when we first started, I think we were at 15% when the LCAP initially rolled out. And then over time, it has increased up to 18%.
And then if I understand correctly, we get that number from the applications for free and reduced lunch, but everybody gets lunch if they want it these days. So how are you determining that number?
I'm going to turn that over to Mrs. Reed.
Perfect. So that number actually is a composite number of 3 factors. It's the number of students who are currently designated as English language learners, combined with students who previously, we would say, qualify for free and reduced lunch. So although we do have universal feeding currently, we still do encourage all families to apply for the free and reduced lunch or free and reduced meals, because we also serve breakfast, because it does help expand the amount of funds that we get through this. And there's a third number, though, and that's the foster youth in our community. So those are each counted 1, hence unduplicated. So if you were a second language learner and also qualified for free and reduced lunch, you'd only count one time. So that percentage is the totality of those 3 numbers.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that clarification.
If I may, Mrs. Hill, is it on? I just want to expand a little bit on that. The way Ms. Reed described it is correct. We are experiencing quite of a difficulty next year because of the universal feeding, where that percentage of unduplicated pupil count may decrease because of the lack of initiative for families to participate in free and reduced. So there is that concern across every district that that percentage will decrease. So we are looking and exploring possibilities or ways to incentivize our families to continue to fill out that form. That
has the state realized that they've created a bit of an issue?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
There has been a discussion in all of our CBOs meetings and across the state. It has been an issue.
Great.
One of the things the governor and the legislature is proposing, we'll yet to see what they actually pass in their budget, is to change that formula to a certain percentage. I think it's 200 and 250% above the federal poverty level. So there may be some other metrics that they'll use instead, realizing that this is an unintended consequence when they provided universal meals to all families.
That's great information. Thank you very much for all that clarification. Thank you, Mrs. Davis.
No problem. So there's 8 state priorities that here in LoSal we capture within 3 goals. So our 3 goals are exemplary teaching and learning, exemplary student outcomes, and exemplary connections. So within goal 1 with teaching and learning, we really talk about basic services, the Common Core state standards, and course access. Within goal 2 with student outcomes is about student achievement and other student outcomes. And then the last 3 priorities, parental involvement, student engagement, and school climate, we kind of capture within exemplary connections. So this is a brief review of kind of the process we've gone through this year of engaging all the stakeholders in the development of the LCAP. So it really started back in August with county and meetings and trainings through our district advisory committee. We've had 3 meetings this year. We've sent out a survey to all of our stakeholders to gain input, both our parents, students, and staff. And then we've had a working group sessions with Orange County Department of Education to get input on our draft. And we're currently in the second round of drafts with the Orange County Department of Ed, just kind of working with them to make sure that we have all the components built in that we need. So tonight is our presentation and our public hearing, and then we'll make some adjustments based on the public hearing and additional input we get from stakeholders, and then we'll bring the final draft to the board for approval on June 28th. So what I'm going to do is just briefly talk about what is in each of the 3 goals. I'm not going to go into the specific services. It's going to mention more so the actions. There is a copy of the LCAP that I've shared with all of you to review, and it's available on the website for the public as well if they want to read through all the detailed actions and services. So in goal 1, exemplary teaching and learning, it really talks about professional development, our instructional materials, educational technology, intervention, math support, English language arts support, instructional support services, and enhanced support for students. So that really encompasses all of our professional development, our 5-year professional development plan for all of our new teachers, our math and ELA TOSAs, coaching, site interventions, our reading labs, anything really to support teaching and learning for students. Goal 2 is our exemplary student outcomes. So that the actions really speak to our district benchmarks and collaboration, the increasing A through G completion, increasing AP, CTE, and/or dual enrollment course completion, our co-teaching model, career technical education, and Project Lead the Way. So that really is with the district benchmarks that we give 3 times a year, the time for teachers to analyze that, provide small targeted group instruction, all of our Griffin Connections, professional development for AP teachers and support, as well as any supports for teachers. Goal 3, exemplary connections, really kind of encompasses the 4 A's, if you will. So it talks about student engagement, our parent engagement, student safety, student mental health, student social emotional well-being, maintaining a safe, healthy, and drug-free learning environment, and then transportation. So I do want to just expand a little bit on transportation. That is a new action that we've kind of built into our LCAP this year, and it's really just coming from a place of, during one of our review sessions with Orange County Department of Ed, it's kind of not basic services that you supply to students, like transportation to and from school, most districts really haven't thought of including that in your LCAP. And so that is something that is really a standard practice of ours that we will be including going forward, a service that we provide to our unduplicated pupils. So with that, are there any questions?
And so when you talked about transportation, so you mean that we already have been providing it for them free of charge, and we just weren't counting it?
We weren't counting it, so we've decided to include that and get credit for a standard practice of something that we are already doing.
That's awesome. Thank you. Any other questions?
Oh, I just want to say thank you. Being on that committee with Meg, you explained to everyone so well, and it's a group of all diverse people, parents, teachers, administrators, board members, and your clarification and your explanations are wonderful. But the other part I really appreciate is the second half of every meeting that I've been able to attend. You present an issue or a question and break us into small groups, and collectively there have been some brilliant ideas that have come out of it, and I've seen them integrated. So thank you for your leadership. Really, it's outstanding.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mrs. Davis.
Thank you.
And we will look for that to be on our agenda and to vote on for our next meeting on the 28th. Oh, back to the fun part. So we are going into another public hearing, and this is the public hearing on the Los Alamitos Unified School District Local Control and Accountability Plan. And so I'll gavel out of our meeting, gavel into the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions regarding the LCAP? Seeing none, I will gavel out of the public hearing. And now we will move into the presentation of the proposal for the Los Alamitos Unified School District annual budget for 2022-2023 fiscal year. Mrs. Galicia.
Good evening, esteemed board, executive cabinet, Dr. Pulver, and distinguished guests. I'm honored to be here today to present the proposal for our 22-23 annual budget. So as you know, this year's governor's proposal is much better than we anticipated. It's definitely welcoming his proposal. It looks so much better. We are very thankful for the advocacy that school services, CASBO, CSBA, and AXA have been doing these few months to really help school districts across California. So I'm going to go over the 22-23 governor's May revision, as well as give you a quick little fiscal outlook. So as you know, the governor's spending plan for 22 is approximately $300.7 billion. And it really is focused on public safety. It addresses homelessness, to transform public education, and combat climate changes. This year's unprecedented revenue over the last 2 years has really been because of those three big taxes, which is personal income tax, corporation, and sales tax. It grew about 30% in 2021 and an additional 20% in the current fiscal year of 21-22. Of course, the Department of Finance and the Legislative Analyst Office still forecast a moderate growth up until fiscal year 25-26, but still indicate that there may be a recession in the near future nationally. So they continue to keep an eye on that. Of course, for California, one of our risks that we may encounter some reductions in revenue are the high-income earners, as well as disruptions due to wildfires, which we kind of encounter quite often due to drought and other extreme weathers. Proposition 98 guarantee really grew this from the 21 adopted budget, about $16.6 billion. That's a huge increase from one fiscal year to another. We also have to note that Prop 98 growth is attributed really to the revenue growth in the current year of 21-22. The May revision increased our LCFF cap, our LCFF base by 6.56% COLA. And I just want to remind, a lot of people assume that the 6.56%
increase in COLA is an overall increase in revenue, but it really isn't because it's based on student enrollment. So it really is an increase in funding per student, not overall funding. In addition to that, we welcome this additional $2.1 billion in ongoing Proposition 98 funding, which I will touch a little bit more. It really equates about a 3.3% increase in our base funding. And like I said, it's really the work of Access, CSBA, about increasing the base. It wasn't as what we wanted, but 3.3% increase to the base is significant. There's also a really welcoming increase to the way the governor is trying to help the districts that are severely declining in enrollment, and how I've talked about the cliff, and you've heard about the enrollment cliff and the ADA cliff that is going to happen. The governor did provide an additional relief, which is a mitigation of our 21-22 ADA, which it provides for us to be able to calculate our 21-22 ADA based on our current enrollment times our attendance rate for 19-20, which is going to be very helpful when we calculate our funded ADA, which I'll touch in a little bit further into the presentation. Additional funding that is in the governor's May revision is a discretionary block grant. The governor proposes $8 billion as discretionary funding. This equates about they estimate it to be $1,500 per ADA based on our 21-22 reported P2 ADA, which is about $8,700, our reported P2 ADA for 21-22. This is significant. This is about $13 million for us as a district. We are not including these funds in our adopted budget primarily because OCDE has recommended that we don't, mainly because it hasn't been approved. It's just a proposal. It's significant. We would hate to have to include it and then take it out. Currently, the legislature and the Senate and the Assembly have totally different proposals on the table. The Assembly absolutely wants to provide a discretionary allocation based on learning, but geared towards learning incentives, but they don't have a dollar amount, as well as the Senate has an amount, but has a totally different formula. So because there's so much discrepancy, we're not including those funds in the budget. Yes.
You pretty much answered what I was going to question. So this wonderful discretionary block grant will come with strings, very specific strings attached when we get it. Of course, they have to figure out how much money and what the strings will actually be, but is that what will happen?
Well, the way the governor is presenting it, it's really discretionary.
Oh, wow.
Geared towards improving mental health, staffing, but it really isn't a tight restriction. It really is leaving it up to the district's discretion to use those funds.
Okay.
So,
and this is one-time money?
That's correct, only one time.
When would it be decided?
Well, correct. Once the legislature and the governor come up with, negotiate, and of course there's still trailer bills that will be cleaned up after the enacted budget. So we would probably know until maybe August what the final outcome would be on the discretionary block grant.
So this is where we're largely having to base most of the assumptions on our budget off of the governor's May revision. All of our legislative advocates say the Senate and the legislature have some very different desires that differ from the governor. And so it may not be that they have a different plan for how to deal with the ADA adjustments as well. The governor's on this block grant is almost unrestricted one-time funds, says to also apply that. You could use that to help mitigate the increase to STRS and PERS because they're not providing additional dollars for that. And yet the legislature, we've heard, may want to use a different formula, using some of this money, increase it, but also base it upon equity. So they buy concentration and supplemental, which we typically aren't the best recipients of it. So it'll be interesting to what happens in the negotiations between the governor, the legislature, between the Senate and the Assembly. But they do have to pass a budget by
June 15th. Well, no, not necessarily. The legislature has to finalize their budget by June 15th, but there's still going to be additional negotiations going on between the governor. But the governor has to sign a budget by July 1st with trailer bills being negotiated and ironed out after.
Big picture by July 1st, where Mrs. Galicia is saying is some of the details, which is really important for us, doesn't come out till later in the trailer bills. But we'll know these big pictures that are discretionary. Are there strings? Are there not? How do they adjust the attendance, 3-year rolling average, et cetera? We should know that by July 1st, hopefully.
So in addition to the discretionary block grant, the governor does also increase the allocation that he originally proposed for the expanded learning opportunity. He added an additional $403 million for a total of $4.8 billion. He also proposes an additional funding of $614 million going towards the transitional kindergarten and expansion program. Universal meals, of course, that continues to be a huge discussion, and he does propose an additional $611 million towards that initiative.
Does that cover our costs then? What our portion of that money, would that cover our cost for these meals?
We're anticipating that it will. So it will pay for the additional, we get the federal share, and then the state will supplement that. So I wanted to go over, give you a quick little overview of the LCFF funding factors. I wanted to just take a look at what our base funding is per grade level. So currently our base grant funding per ADA based on grade levels is $8,093 for K3 and $8,215 and $8,400 and so on and so forth based on grade level. Once we add the COLA of 6.56, then we add 538, 539, 555, and so on and so forth. The additional LCFF investment, this is the additional 3.3%. Then we add that onto our base funding. And these numbers are across all districts. So this is the base funding that every district receives. We add in addition $266, $270, $278, and $322 for grades 9 through 12. Bringing our grand total overall 22-23 base funding of K3, $8,890, and so on and so forth. Then we add a grade span adjustment, which is 10.4% for K3 and about 2.6% for 9-12. Those are the only two grade spans that we receive additional, an additional grade span adjustment. We don't receive anything additional for 4-6 or 7-8, but we do receive for those two. Then that brings us to yet a new adjusted base grant funding of $9,800, $9,024, $9,291, and so on and so forth. Then we receive the 20% supplemental per ADA, which is the LCAP. That's our supplemental funds that go towards the LCAP. And that's the dollar amount that we receive per grade level of $347, $319, $329, and $391. This is all based on our unduplicated pupil count, which is, like Melissa mentioned earlier in her presentation, for this year, for next year, 22-23, we're anticipating that rate to be 17.68. Other districts whose rate is much higher, unduplicated, that dollar amount is absolutely much, much higher than what we get. So just think about the dollar amounts that we get based on our unduplicated compared to another district. So this is just based on us as a district. Then
so
the concentration.
A difference in funding per student could be for most of us, for LaSalle, the highest of 11,000, and a district in concentration could be 18,000. So significant funding per student difference.
So there probably was some change between our pamphlet, what we're reading, and what's on the screen, because I have different numbers for the 20% supplemental grant per ADA. I've got 326.
Oh, I apologize. That
so
the slideshow is the correct
I like this
one.
Better, it's more.
Yes, I caught that mistake at the end, and I corrected it here, but we probably didn't correct your part. So I apologize.
We found us some more money.
The numbers up there are the correct ones. I had pulled the 21-22 numbers. So as you can see, as Dr. Pulver mentioned, the concentration which our district does not qualify for because our unduplicated pupil counts is so low, that's an additional funding that other districts receive that we don't. Okay. Then we go into the COLA factor, and this is where I wanted to show you an example of what really does it affect our district when we're declining enrollment. And we are declining approximately 2.33% overall in our enrollment projections. Let's take this is an example of if we did not have any decline in enrollment. So currently, our funded ADA is assuming 9,504, and our overall LCFF funding is $90 million. If we are not declining in enrollment, our ADA per ADA, obviously with the increase in COLA, it's now 10,092 per ADA. So our overall LCFF could be $95 million if we weren't declining in enrollment. That would equate really to the 6.56% increase in COLA. Since we are declining in enrollment, our funded ADA is now 9,283. Our per ADA funding is 10,000. Our true ADA funding is $93 million. Therefore, our true increase in LCFF funding is only 4.08%. So we don't really see the 6.56 increase in COLA. We only see a 4.09%, primarily due to the declining of enrollment. So what does the LCFF mean for Los Alamitos right now? We are estimating our ADA funding to be 10,396 per ADA, and our projected 3-year average for 22-23 ADA is 9,329. Our current funded ADA for 22-23 is based on a 3-year average. If you remember, last year's per ADA funding was based on prior year or current year, whichever one was higher. Now with the governor's proposal, it's the higher of prior year, current year, or a 3-year average. And of course, for us, the 3-year average is more than the prior year, the current year, so we're using the 3-year average, along with the mitigated 21-22 ADA, which is higher than what our true 21-22 ADA is. So our projected LCFF revenue overall is $96,984,000. So what we're using as our annual budget multi-year assumptions for 21-22, our estimated actuals, and our proposed for 22-23, and then the 2 years in the outward years, 23-24 and 24-25. So as you can see, COLA, which is our cost of living adjustment, is currently 507, and it goes up to 6.56, and then it's estimated to be 5.38 and 4.02. The LCFF base funding increase is the 3.3%. We're adding it into our 22. And like I mentioned before, it's already added to the base, so we don't add it again because it's ongoing. Our STRS and PERS, it's projected to be 19.10% in the next 3 years. That's based on the most recent approved rate from the state board, STRS board. But of course, they have the flexibility of being able to increase that at any time. I believe 1% if it's not been approved just yet. We also have our PERS rate. It increased from last year to this current year of, it's expected to increase, for 22-23 to 25.37. That's 2.48%. The two STRS and PERS increases equates to about a $1.3 million increase just in this fiscal year. We are seeing a slight relief in the PERS rate in the next 2 years, a reduction of 0.17% and 0.60% in the 24-25. PERS board does anticipate that they'll continue to decrease that slightly because they did have a pretty good year as far as their investment, but that could quite change based on how the economy is. But yeah, we're hopeful that it continues to stay like that. Our health benefit, or SUI, our state unemployment rate, as you know, increased from historically had been 0.005 and went up to 0.5%. And it's expected to be the same for the remainder of the 3 years going forward. Our health benefit per employee cost, we are currently estimating that to be $15,754 per employee. We have continued to analyze that information. That's our estimated actuals, but now when we close our books, we do anticipate that number to go down quite a bit due to stop loss reimbursements we received. We received a pretty large one this year at the end of this month. So that number is going to decrease a little bit. I have taken that into consideration when I projected my 22-23 number and 23-24. So that lower number, that's why you don't see a huge increase from 21-22 to 22-23, because I've taken that reduction in consideration. So our enrollment projections, as you can see, currently 21-22, as of our CalPADS data, it was 9,133. We are projecting our enrollment for 22-23 to be 8,920. And like Dr. Pulver mentioned earlier, we use Decision Insight Power Schools. We use their numbers and our own roll-up numbers and did a more conservative number where we took the lesser of. So if their numbers were higher, mine were lower, I took the lower numbers. If theirs were lower and mine were higher, we did their lower numbers, just to be more conservative. And then our projected funded ADA for 22-23, it's like I mentioned, the 9,329, which is a 3-year average ADA modified by the 21-22 ADA. And I'm projecting that for the next 2 years as well. Our projected LCFA entitlement per ADA is currently right now 9,470. It's expected to go up to 10,396, and then 10,965, and 11,422 in the third year out. So I think I've shared this chart a few times, and in the last one, you probably do remember that cliff where we see our funded ADA really go down in the 22-23. So due to the modified 3-year average that the governor is proposing, that kind of levels it, and it really helps that cliff not be so significant. So really just wanted to show you where we thought we were going to be and now how it looks now, and it's so much better with the 3-year rolling average. And so as we look at our multi-year projections, once I plugged in all the projected COLA, the additional LCFF mitigated base funding, our total LCFF federal and state and local revenues for 22 are projected about $103 million. Transfers in from other sources, which is EDCC and our OPEB investment. We are continuing to bring from our investment fund $975 mainly to pay for our retiree health benefits. And then we anticipate our expenditures to be for 22, a little over $92.8 million, and then $93 million for 22-23, and so on and so forth. We continue to project transfers out to deferred maintenance, $1 million to maintain our facilities. And then we have our contributions to restricted, which is the routine restricted maintenance fund that we have to maintain, which is 3% of our overall general fund expenditures, as well our contribution to our special ed programs. So as you can see, our surplus and our deficit spending, we have been used to seeing a negative there, which is a deficit spending. It's really nice to see a black number there, to be honest. So for 22, we are anticipating to have a surplus of $706,000, and for 23-24, $1.9 million, and then for 24-25, $863,000. We bring in our beginning balances, and then we set aside our committed and our board-approved committed funds, and then our reserve for economic uncertainties. So our overall, once we bring Fund 17, as you can see, we are at 9.81 for 22-23, 9.93%, and then 9.75 for 24-25. As a reminder that The board did approve a resolution last board meeting on May 24th to commit utilizing portions of the general fund, primarily to maintain that 10% cap that the state is now requiring us to have in our budget. And so those committed funds, let me bring it back. So the board approved committed funds, the 2 million, the 4.3 million, and the 5.3 are mainly due to CalSTRS and PERS liabilities, LCFF district priorities, deferred maintenance, textbook adoptions, declining enrollment mitigations, technology replacements, and health benefit costs that we want to put that money aside for those particular issues that may show up.
So what just go back to the other slide just real quickly. So what Elvia and Myra have been one more slide, sorry. We have, as you know, we sent out an email to all of our families and to staff on Friday about some of the things we're looking forward to next year, including in adding additional mental health counselors at the elementary level. Towards the end, we decided to add 3 additional school psychologists to help to make sure we have a full-time psychologist at every school site. Elvia and Myra have been able to add those funds in this budget. So when you see the percentages, that's already being reflected. We've accounted for that in our budget. Obviously, what's not is any salary negotiations with our employees, which obviously our employees really deserve to be able to be compensated. And that's what we heard a little bit today was the opening process of negotiations through the sunshining aspects. But I wanted you to know those new positions are reflected in this budget already.
That's correct. Thank you, Dr. Pulver. So what are our next steps? Right now, you are reviewing, and we have a public hearing scheduled for the LCAP and the proposed budget. Then June 15th is the deadline for the legislature to send their balanced budget to the governor, and all details may not be already final. And then on June 28th, the board will adopt the proposed budget that will be effective for July 1st. So do keep in mind that once the governor does sign the budget and we have a huge differences between what we have in our proposed budget and the board does want to have a 45-day revision, we can definitely bring another presentation and present what changes are now included in the budget. And then in September 22, we will bring forward our unaudited actuals, as well as any other revisions that we find appropriate to bring at that time. And then sometime in December 22nd, we will bring our first interim, our first opportunity to revise the budget. And then in March of 23, we will bring our second interim report. And I do want to give a big thank you to Myra, who's unfortunately not able to join us, but I know she's probably listening to the presentation. Thank you, Myra, for all your hard work, and to the Fiscal Services Department, Genesee and Rose, who were instrumental in helping me prepare for all this. So thank you very much. And with that, I would more than happy to answer any questions.
I do want to say that I do appreciate the recognition of all the lobbying bodies that really are trying to, have really been focused on the base. And one of the things, I'm on delegate assembly, thanks to Meg, on CSBA, and we had a brainstorming session. One of the things that we came up with in our brainstorming session is that we said, you know, the governor expects us to have a 3-year budget going forward. Why don't they give us the 3-year budget, what that budget is going to be? And so I think that's one of the things that CSBA will also be looking at trying to advocate for, because what you have to do and the projections you have to make without knowing really what that number is going to be every year is dramatic. So I really do appreciate all that you do and all the hard work that goes into this. And it's nice to look at not doing deficit spending right now. I am appreciative of that. That was very worrisome. But then after our workshop today on declining enrollment, we know that it just doesn't mean that the skies are sunny everywhere in the future.
Correct.
So
that is
thank
correct.
you.
Well, thank you.
Any comments?
I have a
Meg,
yeah,
thank you, Meg.
Yeah. I just want a point of clarification. it has to do with how we are counting our ADA. Do we know for sure that we can choose the option that we have chosen as opposed to the other two options? Do we know, has that become final yet?
No, it has not been final just yet, but we're using the most current information we have, and we base it on the county's recommendations, which is go based on what the governor, his proposal.
There's some differences between what the governor is proposing and what the legislature has seemed to settle on. The legislature doesn't seem to support the one-time mitigated effort for this year's enrollment. And so we'll see where they land. But for now, Orange County Department of Ed, the only information we have is the most accurate information the governors may revise. So that's what this budget is based off of. But obviously some of those things will change once the actual budget is enacted.
Yeah. I think sometimes I read too many articles. When nobody really knows what's happening, and so you read all these articles, and I don't have your background, and
prior, our legislative advocates have shared that when Governor Brown was there, most of his May revision was the enacted budget. The legislature has a different perspective now and is a little bit more emboldened to be able to push their priorities even more if they don't completely align with the governor. So that's really going to be the governor and the two bodies that really need to navigate this process now.
More of a tug of war.
And in our CBO meetings, that discussion did come up quite a bit, where districts are not sure which way to go. And that question did come up a lot. And what the county's recommendation is, use the governor's proposal, because according to the Senate and the Assembly, their proposal was slightly higher than what the governor was proposing, especially increasing the base or increasing the overall COLA was higher based on the Assembly and the Senate. So going based on the lower of the three it's better or more safer.
It is actually the most conservative number.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I didn't want to burst into tears in August.
Well, neither do I.
I don't think it'll be that dramatically different. It could potentially, if anything, what we hear is potentially be better, unless some of the metrics are geared towards equity. But to me, again, the great news is we're not in the red. We're not deficit spending.
Yes.
So that's significant.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mrs. Galicia. And then we will now move into the public hearing on the proposed Los Alamitos Unified School District annual budget for 2022-2023 fiscal year. Gavel out of this meeting, gavel into the public hearing. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, I will gavel out of the public hearing and back into our meeting. We are now going to move on to 11I, which is the presentation of supplemental materials. Mrs. Reed.
Thank you so much, President Hill. Tonight, we're bringing forward Sonday, LPL, System 1, System 2, and System 3 to be used in UTK through grades 8 for structured, systematic, multisensory reading intervention for readers at the beginning stages of reading through 8th grade. Each of these lessons incorporates Orton-Gillingham methods to provide an effective intervention in small group settings, and will be used as part of our Ed Specialist plan as well to look at areas concerning dyslexia.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And those are on review for 30 days. Then we're moving on to the J, which is a presentation of a textbook.
Thank you, President Hill. We're also bringing forward tonight National Geographic World of Chemistry, which will be used next school year at Los Alamitos High School for our college prep chemistry course. And this textbook will also be on public display for 30 days with Ed Services.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. We'll move on to our consent calendar. Our consent calendar are items that are normal business for the district, and often we take a group of items together since they are consent. And but the board always has the opportunity to pull if there are items that they want to pull and have further discussion or questions about. Are there any polls? Then I would look for a motion for 12A through FF.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Wonderful. Thank you. And now we will move on to action items. And our first action item is the second reading and approval of revised board policy 6144, controversial issues. Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, President Hill. This is the third time we're bringing this forward. We had two first readings as we just wanted to have a discussion first. But since our last board meeting where we had the first reading, the only change based upon the feedback from the board was an item number 5 to change the word to negative consequences. And so we reflected that change and would recommend the board approve the policy with its revisions as presented.
I need a motion and then we can have discussion. A second? And discussion?
I'd just like to say that we see a lot of the policies that this one was, this on controversial issues was actually controversial. And we listened to comments from teachers, comments we received from various people, and there was a lot of discussion and editing and changing. We didn't take the original at all. And so I think it really reflects that when it's necessary, we'll do all of that wordsmithing. And I'm really happy with this document. So good job, everybody.
Thank you, Mrs. Davidson. Yes, Mrs. Cattouli?
I kind of want to echo what Mrs. Davidson said. I do appreciate the work the staff has done on this policy. But I also think it's very important that we have this policy, and it's very important that our students, particularly our high school students, discuss controversial issues. It's important for us to raise a generation of children who will become adults who have critical thinking skills. And you have to learn how do you research your information. You have to learn that some things you're going to have a gut reaction to without a lot of thought that has gone into why you feel that way. And these things are all legitimate, but you have to learn how do you discuss them, and how does the teacher interject into it? Because controversial issues, you're not going to get everybody to ever agree. So I'm really glad that we have it. I think it's well written, and I appreciate staff's effort.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. After a lot of work. Our next action item is B, approval of the first reading of an updated board policy 6154, homework and homework makeup work. And Mrs. Reed, I believe that you were going to give us an explanation on this policy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, President Hill. Tonight, we're bringing forth a first reading of Board Policy 6154, and you'll also notice the next agenda item, item C, which is the Administrative Regulation 6154 that accompanies this board policy. So for those at home that may be wondering, what's the difference between a board policy and an administrative regulation? The board policy is really more the larger vision of what the policy is enacting, and the administrative regulation is really the how-to, the kind of the operationalization or procedures of how you'll enact the vision of the board policy. And so this is work that we've been engaging in since November of this school year, first as an administrative team, then at the school site level, and then really district-wide. And so I do want to thank all the staff members that have participated in that collaboration and gave feedback along the way as we were really working to update our board policy and our administrative regulation to really reflect current best practices and research in the area of homework, quantity of homework, and productivity and purpose of homework, which I think is really important, as it really is one of the ways that we reinforce what we teach inside the classroom and help students progress towards mastery of standards in each of the courses. And so I did want to spend just a couple of minutes with a few slides giving an overview of some of those changes. The board policy really is an update to a current board policy, and we currently do not have an administrative regulation for 6154. And although you don't have to bring an administrative regulation forward to be board approved, we really thought that in full transparency, we wanted to make sure that the community and staff could see how we plan to operationalize the changes in this board policy. So we are bringing that forward tonight, and we'll bring it back for a second reading as well. So the board policy, I'm going to just read these two paragraphs. They're not the entirety of the board policy, but I think that they really do summarize and capture the intent of the changes to our board policy. So the governing board believes that homework should be meaningful, developmentally appropriate, engaging, and relevant to classroom learning. Homework should have a positive impact on student learning and is defined as the assigned learning activities that students work on outside of the classroom. Students should be able to complete homework independently and, as a result, further develop essential skills and gain deeper understanding of course content. The board expects that the number, frequency, and degree of difficulty of homework assignments will increase with the grade level and the maturity of students. The board promotes student wellness and academic rigor, and to these ends values quality over quantity and recognizes the distinction between load and rigor. And so really this homework administrative regulation, or really instruction is what the board policies and is entitled 6154, outlines homework requirements for both teachers, administrators, and really defines the role of the parent. And so when we talk about that quantity of homework or the amount of time that students would be spending on homework at the elementary level, you can see that this current AR, as it's written in its first draft, has kindergarten, occasional short homework and or reading for pleasure, grade 1, 0 to 10 minutes, average Monday through Thursday, grade 2, 0 to 20, grade 3, 0 to 30, grade 4, 0 to 40, and grade 5, 0 to 50. And you'll notice one of the changes in this current version of the draft policy is homework Monday through Thursday, where students at the elementary level are not assigned homework Friday and going into the weekend. And you can really see that we're using what research really promotes as a 10-minute per grade level rule at the elementary level as the threshold by which students are able to independently practice and process information that actually benefits academic achievement and doesn't have the negative effect. There is a lot of research that supports if you overdo the amount of homework, you actually see a negative impact on learning. And so we really want to make sure that we're addressing best practices in research and really making sure that our homework is a positive impact on student and student learning. So when we look at the middle school, you'll see that we continue with that recommendation of Monday through Thursday night homework. And so you can see 60 minutes a night average, 70 minutes a night average, and 80 minutes, 0 to 80 minutes a night average at the middle school setting. And so some of the work our middle schools have been doing with challenge success and working with things such as a conflict calendar and really talking cross-department are going to be helping to support this change in the board homework policy, because teachers will need to be talking to each other across content areas at that middle school level to make sure that large assignments, studying for tests, big projects aren't all on the same night of the week for different departments. So we don't see students really being stretched over their load and capacity on particular nights, and then really not being able to give us the best assessment of their learning, which is really what projects and tests are supposed to do, is give us a great metric by which to measure if students are learning so that we can make good decisions as educators what we do with that information now. If students aren't learning, how do we change? How do we reteach? Or if students are learning, moving forward and looking at our pacing and our scope and sequences of courses. So at the high school level, you can imagine that gets a little bit more difficult because we offer such a wide stratification of courses and levels, and the homework and workload attached to any of those courses looks a little bit different. So you see that at the high school, the recommended homework minutes for a college preparatory course would be 0 to 20 minutes per period per night. And this is where you'll see the Monday through Friday as students are getting older and the courses start to become more rigorous and are preparing students for that post-secondary opportunity or sequential courses that students will and can be assigned homework on a Friday. An honors course at 0 to 25 minutes per night per period. And then really, I think what we are going to be working to do a much better job of, and it's actually delineated much further in the administrative regulation under the assignment of duties by an administrator, is informing our community and students about the workload involved in an advanced placement course. And so you'll see that advanced placement course really says refer to course catalog. We will be adding additional language moving once and if the version that's passed of this is passed into our course catalog that really highlights to families the level of rigor for each advanced placement course, because each advanced placement course, they're not oranges to oranges. Some have a much deeper rigor and a higher load associated with them. And it's a college course, and the scope and sequence is set by the College Board. It's not set by our Los Alamitos High School teachers, and the course is designed with a specific pacing that's designed to prepare a student for a summative assessment that either grants or does not grant college credit for a high school course. So just really want to make sure that families understand when their child is taking 1, 2, or 3 advanced placement courses, what that load would look like, as well as when your student is registering for a college prep or honors course, being able to educate our families about what the entire high school experience comprehensively looks like. So if your child is an orchestra or plays football or is an ASB, the amount of time that you would need in your daily schedule on top of the homework minutes based on the academic load of courses your child registers for, what that looks like. And so part of the work that we're doing that's outlined in this administrative regulation is also during the registration process, informing parents about the number of advanced placement courses their child is signing up for, and then including that load recommendation from our course catalog so that parents will know ahead of time with their child what the expectation for that would be. A couple other highlights or points that are new to this admin reg would be that no assignment should be given during a school break, and any long-term assignment should not be due during the first week back from a school break. So I think school breaks are very purposeful. The research really indicates that they're set to give students an opportunity to recharge. Also an opportunity for our staff to recharge. So I think that's something that we've learned this pandemic as well, is that our staff are feeling very overwhelmed. I know I can speak for myself. It's very overwhelming returning back to a post-pandemic world of education. And so this cycle of staff and student are very tightly aligned. And so this also is looking at the well-being of our staff as well. Also, the last point, homework shall not be assigned during standardized testing for grades 3 through 8, and prior to and during semester finals in grades 9 through 12. Only homework directly tied to preparation for the semester finals shall be assigned the week prior to semester finals. As anyone who's taken a college final or high school final, has children at that age, that week of finals and the week beforehand, there's a lot of studying going on to prepare for those semester summative assessments. So really, we shouldn't be assigning or adding on large projects, essays, additional homework that's not tied to the preparation for that summative assessment that our students engage in during that week of finals. So if there's any questions on that revision, I'd be more than happy to answer those. I just want to thank everyone for their support in this work. I think it's really paramount to support our staff and our students.
That was a ton of work. When you went over about how you talk to staff, and we know you've been doing this for months and meeting with teachers, and I think parents and students are going to be really happy about this concrete plan. So thank you.
Heard many times and said it myself, particularly in math, you can do 15 problems and get the same benefit as you do 30. And if you're doing them incorrectly, it's really hard to change how you were doing them if you did them 30 times. So yeah, I think this is quality, not quantity, and reinforcement. I think homework is necessary or very good for most students. And so I appreciate the time and effort I know that you have spent and all the people who participated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. And I do appreciate how clear cut it is. And I think that that will really help be able to have that balance. And, you know, I think that this board has been very clear that our goal is to educate the whole child. And there are children that are very academically driven and moving forward, and that's amazing. And there's an outline for them as well. But there's also that balance of being able to give students that opportunity to do those other things that are their passion, that fulfill their lives as well. And so I thank you very much for that, and that it's really research-based. I really appreciate that as well. You bringing forward, this isn't arbitrary. These are numbers are based on research that you've used out there. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we will look. That will be coming forward probably not next meeting, but the meeting afterwards.
You do need to vote on the first reading.
On the first reading? Okay. So I need to vote on, is it 12 or we're 13 action items? 13? 13B, approval of the first reading of an updated board policy 6154, homework and makeup work.
Move approval.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. I now need on 13C approval of the first reading of the Administrative Regulation 6154.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Pulver. We now are moving on to the adoption of the resolution by the Board of Education regarding temporary interdistrict transfer from general fund and various funds. And Mrs. Galicia.
Thank you, Madam President. This resolution is passed every year. As we begin closing the books for this fiscal year 21-22, the county does require us to pass this resolution to allow us that flexibility to move funds. I don't anticipate having to do that, but just in case. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
It's a roll call.
Roll call. Oh, thank you.
Mrs. Cattouli. Aye. Mr. Fayette.
Aye.
Mrs. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Forehand. Aye. Mrs. Davidson.
Aye.
You want to make sure if we're moving money, you want to hear all of our ayes, don't you? Okay. 13E is the approval of a tentative agreement between the Los Alamitos Unified School District and Los Alamitos Education Association, LAEA, and Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. If you remember earlier in the year, we had brought forward a tentative agreement regarding salary and fringe benefits. We went back to the table to work out some language and a catastrophic leave MOU. So this tentative agreement outlines all of those things.
Do I have a motion? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oh,
Aye.
any discussion? I'm sorry. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Approval of memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the Los Alamitos Unified School District and LAEA regarding catastrophic leave. Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. As part of our bargaining session, we really worked out an MOU to help some of our employees who experience catastrophic illness or accidents. This MOU allows employees to donate hours from their own sick time to a bank of hours where you can receive or request hours to be put in your sick time in case that you experience a catastrophic illness or accident to yourself, your family, your immediate, your children. And so there was a lot of work put into this. We met as a committee the other day, and so we're happy to bring this forward to the board.
Awesome. Do I have a motion?
Second.
A second? Any discussion?
I'd just like to say something. As the family member, as the employee who spent 20 months fighting for my daughter's life, to be able to lift the burden of how you're going to, be able to keep your home or, pay your bills and have it come from a team effort from all your friends and fellow employees is just another part of why Los Al is such a great place. You have no idea how terrifying it is to have to make decisions like that. And we fortunately got a lot of support and help, but in the last few years, we've had quite a few teachers who've had these situations. And I just think this going forward will make such a huge difference. So Stacy, Joe, all of you, thank you so much because it takes a burden off the heart of somebody who's already really hurting. So thank you.
Diana.
Thank you, Mrs. Davidson.
Diana. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't speak as eloquently as Marlis just did, but I think it shows such a reflection of compassion for one another and such support and how your school site's like another family. And this is in it, but you need to have structure to do things like this. So I'm glad we have the structure. So thank you.
Thank you both very much. So I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're now moving on to 13G, which is the approval of a new job classification and job description, athletic trainer, and Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. We're bringing forward the approval of the job classification and job description of athletic trainer. We have brought it to the Personnel Commission the last PC meeting, and we are moving it forward as presented.
I need a motion. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those, and we really appreciate the Personnel Commission for helping and moving this forward. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next is the approval of warrants. Warrants are the checkbook of the district. And we have an opportunity to go, we have an opportunity and an obligation to go through every one of these.
31 pages.
And we submit questions, and those questions get answered if we have any questions regarding those warrants. So I would look for a motion. And a second. Any discussion? Thank you for all the answers. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we do the acceptance of donations, the very joyful part. And these are donations that have come directly to the district. And, oh, God, year to date, we are at $829,015.48. Very appreciative. And we also are very well aware that this isn't all the donations that come through our parents and family and community member, but we're very appreciative. And so I would look for a motion. And all those in favor of accepting the donations? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Our last item, we are going to do 13J, K, and L all together, and that's the classified personnel report, the certificated personnel report, and the administrative personnel report. And Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm bringing forward one of our favorite set of triplets, the classified, certificated, and administrative personnel reports as presented.
And this is a very, very busy season for Dr. Frazier, so thank you for that. Do I have a motion? And do I have second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We have now come to the conclusion of our open session, and I do not believe we have any reason to move back into closed session.
We don't. I would just like one more time to remind the public that our next board meeting on June 28th will begin at 6 p.m. instead of 6:30 p.m.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pulver. And thank you very much to everyone who has watched our meeting this evening. And I will bring our meeting to a close. Thank you very much.